From the outside, Sea of Solitude looked like another game in the vein of Greece or Journey. I've covered both of those games on this channel before, and I adore each of them. Unfortunately, I don't think Sea of Solitude achieves the heights that those games reached. If you'll permit me a baseball analogy, Greece and Journey are home runs, and Sea of Solitude is a solid single into left field. Without spoiling too much, Sea of Solitude has you playing as a young girl who has to quite literally face her inner demons. The game is a pretty heavy experience right from the word go, and I really would not call this game particularly fun. Similar to Greece, this game tackles depression head-on, but while Greece had a wordless story that implied particular feelings of sadness and regret, Sea of Solitude has basically non-stop dialogue that expresses very specific situations that the main character is dealing with. As you move through the game, you run into many large monsters, each of which represent a person in your real life. One is your brother, who speaks to you directly and tells you about problems he has had at school with bullying.
I'm too whiny. They say that too. Sometimes I feel bad, Kay. Maybe it would be better if...
No!
You're upset that he never told you this, but then you get to listen to a flashback of him trying to tell you, only to have you ignore him and try to swing the conversation around to talking about yourself. There are numerous other characters who have similar types of stories to tell, each of which is compelling and speaks to their flaws as well as your own. I especially appreciated a point the game hit on time and time again, that your perspective of people or situations is inherently biased and is often clouded by your own egos. We try to make things about us that don't concern us in the least, or we view situations as how they impact us, not those around us. These are good things to think about, and I applaud the game for addressing them. But while I respect the game for taking on issues I think are important, I found the game lacked the impact of some of those other games I've played that address similar topics. I think this is in large part because the stories here are so specific that I felt like I was watching someone else's story and not able to immerse myself as the character. I was watching someone else experience these emotions rather than experiencing them myself. Not every game has to be the same, and maybe this style connected better with others, but for me, it removed some of the emotional impact I was hoping for. And then there's the gameplay, which could have pushed this game over the top for me, but I don't think that was quite up to the task. You spend the game walking, jumping, and boating around a semi-sunken city, and the controls are competent, and I quite enjoyed puttering around the game on the boat, but I didn't find any of it incredibly compelling. The game doesn't have a health bar, and I don't think you can strictly die, but there are plenty of times where you can fall into different failure states that might as well be deaths. For a game where you can't die, I found myself seeing the screen fade to black and respawn me in a recent checkpoint fairly often. There are points in the game where you swim through water before a giant sea monster eats you, but it's tricky to track its path or how far away it actually is. I'm a pretty calm person usually, but this was one spot I had to try a dozen times or so to get past, and it made me want to throw my controller across the room. This is a brief video, and I'm coming across a little negative in it, but I hope your takeaway isn't that this is a terrible game. It's not terrible by any means, and I bet there are lots of people out there who will get great joy from this game. If anything, for me, this game was behind the 8 ball from the start. Coming off my playthroughs of Journey and Greece, maybe I was just setting the bar too high for this game. But as a final recommendation, I'd say the game is worthy of your time and money, but it's not going to blow you away. You could do a lot worse spending $20 on a video game, but you could certainly do a lot better as well. Sea of Solitude gets a tepid recommendation from me, with the caveat that your enjoyment will hinge very strongly on how well the story connects with you personally. Thank you so much for watching.